guys, FilmCrazyAdam here. Happy Independence Day. Hope everyone had a good 4th of July. I just got back from seeing The Amazing Spider-Man. And since this was really high up there on my top 11 list, this was actually number 3 on my list. I was really looking forward to this for a number of reasons. But before I get to those reasons, I think I'll just start out by saying that I liked this movie. This movie was a really good movie, I thought. It was a good comic book movie. And it didn't jerk you around like other comic book movies have, like Ang Lee's Hulk. This was actually it was a good movie. And I recommend going to see it, I really do. That being said, I will actually start to tell you more about the movie and actually make this more of a review. And I think I'm going to address the biggest topic, or the biggest thing about this movie, which you can't avoid it. And that would be relating it or comparing it to the Spider-Man trilogy starring Tobey Maguire that was directed by Sam Raimi. Now, I'll start out by actually saying that I liked Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 when they came out, and I still think they're okay, but that's it. I think they're okay, and to be fair, to be honest, even when they came out, I thought they were okay. I didn't think they were fantastic, and the reason is, I'll tell you that. I'll tell you why for a couple reasons. One big reason is that Tobey Maguire never once seemed like a high school student, and that's kind of Peter Parker. If you don't know yet, Peter Parker is a high school student, but in Spider-Man 1, and I think they did this partially because of the fact that Peter Parker and Kirsten Dunst aren't young anymore. I mean, they're not old, but I mean, they're not kids anymore. So, they immediately, like in the first half hour of Spider-Man 1, they graduate high school, and they're already in college or finding work elsewhere. So, number one, I didn't like the original Spider-Man trilogy because he doesn't look young enough to be Spider-Man. Plus, I didn't really think Tobey Maguire did as fantastic a job as Spider-Man. He didn't come across as Peter Parker, and I'll get to that also. Another thing about the original Spider-Man is, and I rolled with this one, I really did, was the organic webbing, where he shoots it out of his wrist. Now, if you're familiar at all with the comics, you know that that's never ever happened. That Peter Parker has these mechanical web shooters. The reason why he does this with his finger is because there's actually the latch, the webbing shoots out here, from his wrist, like this, like where my watch band is, and there's a lever that extends down onto his palm, which he depresses. He pulls down on the lever, and that shoots out the webbing. But honestly, I rolled with it for that trilogy. I was like, you know what, that's okay, whatever. He shoots webbing anyway. The next thing was, the movie didn't focus on Spider-Man. Those movies focused on Peter Parker. And I know that sounds weird, but here's the thing. It was a comic book movie. And you do need a certain amount of character. You do need a bit of backstory for characters so that you understand why these heroes are fighting for what they're fighting for. But the movie's called Spider-Man, but we see very, very little of Spider-Man. It's all about Peter Parker. Like, it's not about Spider-Man getting criminals or fighting the Green Goblin. It's all about Spider-Man. It's all about Peter Parker trying to land this big fish, which is MJ. He loves MJ. He's trying to impress her by getting a job, by moving, by working for the Daily Bugle, and, trying to win her heart. In Spider-Man, was it 2? Yeah, Spider-Man 2, he's reading poetry to her. He's buying her flowers and stuff. But, I'm going to sidetrack slightly to the X-Men movies, or at least, again, the first 2 movies directed by Bryan Singer. Those movies were about the X-Men versus the Brotherhood. We didn't focus on, Logan's backstory, or Storm's backstory, or Scott Summers' backstory. Like, it was enough that they were superheroes. And there was backstory to them. Like, we know that there was, like, Scott Summers had a relationship with Jean Grey. And, Xavier had this past history with Eric Lencher. So there is backstory there, but it's all about the heroes. It's all about the X-Men. And so I'll end it there with my kind of not dislike of the original trilogy, but kind of like you dealt with it. Oh, okay. You dealt with it because it was all you had at the time. Now let's think about this for a second. When Spider-Man 1 came out in 2002, what other superhero movies were out there? From DC, you had the 4 Superman movies, which, let's be fair, let's be honest, they weren't that great. And yes, I'm saying Superman 1 wasn't that great. If you really want to challenge me on this, I'll explain to you why. That movie too was eh. You had the X-Men movies, which were great. You had Blade. You had the Tim Burton and the Joel Schumacher Batman movies. Bottom line is you didn't have a lot of superhero movies to really choose from. Spider-Man 1 came out and it was really good for its time. But again, you're looking at what was you compared it to, it really was the best movie at the time. Spider-Man 2, the same thing. It was a really good movie at the time. But but then Marvel comes out with the event with Iron Man and Thor and Captain America, and they redid the Incredible Hulk, and I'll get to that too in a second. Is that and the Avengers? God help me, the Avengers. They reset the bar with hero movies. Like they're at this point, when you watch Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, and you hold them up to what you've got now, honestly, they are laughable. They really are. Compared to the superhero movies that are out now, it really doesn't stand the test of time. But like I said, when those movies came out, there wasn't really much competition for good superhero movies, so they were good. And again, don't misunderstand me by thinking I'm saying that those movies sucked. They didn't suck. They're just not standing the test of time. And now I'm going to talk briefly about the Hulk, about 30 seconds about the Hulk. Let's look at it. Remember the 2003 Hulk movie by Ang Lee? That one sucked. And for some reason, a lot of people gave a lot of flack to The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton. But that movie was really freaking good. It was great. It was exactly what you needed with the Hulk movie. It did everything right. And that's all I'm going to say about the Hulk. Now, The Amazing Spider-Man. This movie focused way more on Spider-Man. Like I said, how the originals focused on Peter Parker, this one actually focused on Spider-Man. This one was about him web shooting. It was about him swinging around. There were so many fantastic action scenes. Like this movie, really delivered what I wanted in the originals. Like my favorite part in the very first Spider-Man movie was the scene where Peter Parker is chasing right after Uncle Ben gets shot. And Peter Parker is he's not Spider-Man yet, he's web-swinging through New York, chasing the guy. And he's, he's landing on cars, and he's, doing flips in the air, and he's jumping off of trucks. It was really great. It's what I wanted in a superhero movie. And then they never re-delivered that until the ending credits of that movie. This movie, you get a lot of that. You get a lot of the web swinging, you get a lot of Spider-Man, you get a lot of acrobatics, you get a lot of fight scenes. But it was never over the top. It never felt like that's all you were watching. So this movie, I think, did everything. I think this movie delivered what I wanted in a Spider-Man movie. It delivered a Spider-Man movie. Now, getting to kind of the things that I thought needed a little work were this movie, I thought moved too fast. Where the other movies were about Peter Parker, so we felt we dealt more with the characters, and there was more backstory. There was backstory to this, but it was very fast, constantly moving. I mean, we didn't spend a lot of time with these characters. We developed them. There's character development of Peter, of Gwen Stacy, of Gwen Stacy's father. They even do a little bit of character development with this bully, which was surprising. But it lended a kind of a facet of realism, because one thing I didn't like about Flash in the original Spider-Man is he was so one-dimensional. He was a dick. That was it. In this one, he starts out as a dick, as a typical school bully, but then when Uncle Ben dies, he actually you know, he goes up to Peter and he's like, yo, dude, I'm sorry. And I was like, that's actually good. You know, there are bullies in real life, but even bullies, you know, in real life, people aren't one-dimensional. Anyway. Where to go from here? So, the fight scenes were really easy to follow. The fight scenes were really fun. But again, like, they didn't get bogged down in fight scenes. However, like I said, they did do a lot, like, you know, the movie was constantly moving. That was another thing. We were constantly moving, which was good and bad. Like, you never felt like you spent a lot of time with characters or in a scene with anybody or any particular location, and then we were moving. As opposed to the original, where the original really did lag at times, especially when it came to Peter and his character development. Not a lot is... the thing with... this one actually answered a few questions that I didn't think were answered in the original Spider-Man. Like, why are they doing all this science on these spiders in the original Spider-Man? Like, seriously, they're like, we're doing genetic manipulation of spiders. Why? We can do it, so we're going to try it. This one, they're actually looking for some kind of cure. They're actually looking for a medical miracle. They're like, spiders can do this. No. Well, specifically, they're doing this science on lizards. You know, lizards can regenerate themselves. What if people, you know, what if we could, like, make that an injection? People can go get a booster shot, an injection, and you know, guys coming back from Iraq, you know, they've lost limbs. What if they could regrow those? So they're actually doing science on these different species for a reason, and I liked that. One thing that didn't make sense in this one was you have Oscorp, which is this super powerful, high, expensive, you know, superpower organization that has no security whatsoever freaking ever. Like, Peter just wanders the freaking building. He shows up, without getting into spoilers, alright, we'll get into spoilers. He goes to the building looking for answers about his parents. And if you've seen the trailers, you know that his parents kind of leave very quickly, very mysteriously. And that's another thing I liked. They gave Peter's quest, everything he does is for a reason. Whereas in the original Spider-Man, and even in the comics, Uncle Ben gets killed, and he's like, I have great power, I have great responsibility, so because I have this power, I should fight crime. In this one, it actually makes sense. When Uncle Ben dies in this one, it made more sense than in the original one. In the original one, you know, he goes to that cage match, and the guy stiffs him on the money, and like, kind of like, in his faces, in Peter's face, the money's like, oh, well, I'm not going to pay you, haha. And then the guy steals the money, and Peter just stands there and lets it happen, and the guy's like, I thought the dialogue was so clunky. It's like, you could have taken that guy apart, but now he's going to get away with my money. And Peter, like, you know, says, oh, sorry, that's not the way I roll. And of course that guy, you know, steals Uncle Ben's car. In this one, it makes more sense. I'm not getting this, but Peter walks into a convenience store to buy milk. He doesn't have the money, and he's literally 2 cents short of the cost of milk, and the clerk is a dick to him. So Peter's like, psh. Finally he just leaves. This guy comes in, robs the store, and you know the clerk comes running out and is like, call the police. And he's like, turns to Peter, why don't you call the police? And the guy's like, psh, why? You were a dick. It made more sense. A lot more things made more sense. I'm kind of running out of time on this review right now, so I'll just say that this was a great movie. This, like I said, this is what I think a Spider-Man movie should have been. It had a guy that looked like Spider-Man. I know that some people are complaining that he stutters a lot, and there's a lot of like scenes where he's talking and not really saying a lot, but it's always with Gwen Stacy, and it's always at the high school. And honestly, that made more sense to me. He's stuttering and he's awkward like an actual teenager. He really is a perfect Peter Parker, and this really is a great Spider-Man movie. I recommend that you guys see it. They set it up. They left it open for sequels, and I can't wait. So anyway, happy 4th of July, everyone. I hope you guys had a great day. Go see Spider-Man, and like I said, and I will explain this in a video coming up why I'm so delayed on other things, but anyway, suffice to say, I got a review coming out real soon. Anyway, I'm FilmCrazyAdam, signing off.